All
There we
right.
go.
So, yeah, thank you for joining us. I'm here with Turd Flinging Monkey, and we're going to be discussing MGTOW and traditionalism.
There we
Hopefully,
go.
we'll be able to parse out the disagreements and figure out where exactly people differ on various topics. I know we had sort of an exchange via video. So,
Oh,
TFM, do you want to introduce yourself or go over your philosophy? Did I lose you?
okay. I think you need to mute your mic.
I need to mute my mic.
Yeah, I've muted my mic, and I'm hearing an echo.
Okay, hold on a second. Yeah, here we go. Try that now.
Okay. God damn. All right. Technical diff. Okay, so I'm wearing headphones. Are you wearing headphones?
I am, yes. It should be, I think
Okay.
it should be,
All
wow.
right. See, I'm hearing there's like a 10-second delay where I hear myself. Something. Do I have a different? Oh, you know what? I think I know what it is. I think. Okay. I had it. No, I still hear the delay. Let me close my other tabs. Something is going wrong. I thought I had a tab open. Oh, no, what? It was the Skype link. So the Skype link you gave me was the play button was pressed. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. I think I got it.
Okay. So I was getting the Skype link in my ear along with hearing you. So there's a 10-second delay and I was hearing everything.
Okay,
So
I think we got it now.
okay. I'm sorry, everyone. My bad.
No, it's fine. That happens a lot, actually.
Yeah, you got to kind
Okay,
of skip
great.
to the first couple minutes through a live stream to get all
Yeah,
the technical difficulties worked out. Okay.
perfect. Yeah, now I think we're good.
All right.
So,
Fantastic.
so I'll just reintroduce me. I'm the distributist. I run a YouTube channel that broadly commends traditionalism in the broader sense, Western traditionalism to be specific. And I come from a Catholic background, and so we were discussing perspectives on the cultural war and the future of gender relations with the MGTOW community. And I have here Turd Flinging Monkey from the MGTOW community to really hammer out what what the differences are and where perhaps controversies could arise. So, did you want to
Right.
introduce yourself?
I'm Turd Flingy Monkey. I'm a talking chimpanzee who sells sex toys on the side.
Great. And you're also a MGTOW ideas driver, right?
Right. A MGTOW philosophy. But I also want to emphasize that when I talk about, societal things like societal collapse,
Uh-huh.
patriarchy, these aren't MGTOW. MGTOW very simply is just anti-marriage, anti-gynocentrism. It's a very low bar. So obviously people bring their own politics, their own beliefs into MGTOW, and I'm no different. So
Uh-huh.
a lot of things I'm going to talk about don't represent MGTOW as a whole. They just represent my personal flavor. Because that's the thing about MGTOW. It's men going their own way.
No, I understand MGTOW is incredibly diverse feature of
Right.
I don't think it's as consolidated an idea
No.
as traditionalism is.
Well, because
The
there's no
community I'm in,
hierarchy.
yeah, the community I am represents about like 5 or 6 different Christian religions, just in the various bloggers who make it up. And I think there's more agreement among us than there would be under typical MGTOW. But I think still we can hammer out some of the differences.
Right.
Could you just explain MGTOW for people who might not know, I guess?
Well, it's almost a rejection. It's a rejection of gynocentrism, and traditionalism plays a large part in that. But
Mhm.
before we talk about that, we have to define gynocentric traditionalism from patriarchal traditionalism, because I think
Yes, excellent.
we may or may not agree more than we think. We may actually be more or less in agreement on a lot of things and only have
Mhm.
small quibbles, or we may be completely 180 degrees apart from each other, depending on how you answer one question. So are you ready for this question?
Oh, sure, sure.
Okay. Okay. So taking into account the last 100 years, so we've had 3 waves of feminism, all kinds of female liberation, female empowerment. This has all
Mhm.
come at the expense of male authority, particularly between a husband and his wife and a father and his children. So
To a
given the
certain
last,
degree, where do you start this process? The 19th century, the 20th century, uh,
what do you
the
mean? Like,
Industrial Revolution, I guess. I mean, you could imagine any number of starting points for feminism, I suppose, right?
well, feminism, I mean, if you want to talk about the when the seeds were planted, they were really planted like during the Protestant Reformation, because that's when women started to become educated. That's when the first proto-feminist writers began writing little booklets. And then that eventually became, during the 1800s, kind of the proto-feminist movement, which then took off in the early 1900s. But if we just want to start in the last 100 years with the actual official waves of feminism, starting with first wave, women being given the right to vote, but being exempt from the draft. Second wave, all the reproductive rights and all this other stuff. So, and then third wave, patriarchy theory, all that fun stuff. So we just talk about the last 100 years. You can see that the marriage as a deal, if you think of it as like a business deal, has become less and less favorable to the man. In fact, it is MGTOW's position, by and large, again, I'm not speaking for all MGTOW, but marriage just offers no benefit to a man. The only benefit that I could come up with, and I'm really straining, is if you can't afford something like a surrogate, or perhaps when artificial wombs or cloning comes online, some sort of technological asexual reproduction, marriage is kind of a rent-to-own alternative. If you can't afford these expensive technologies, that is literally the only benefit to a man. If you absolutely want to have children, but you can't afford something like a surrogate mother, or the laws make that illegal, like in the UK.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the trouble is that you're taking these concepts of patriarchal marriage outside of the context of the societies they grew up in. I'm not sure that modern man is more put upon than, say, a man in the 17th or 16th century. He certainly has less authority inside of a marriage, but at the same time, marriage was just one of the institutions that man occupied, and that put claims in on his responsibility.
There's nothing wrong with men being responsible. Now, a lot of MGTOW, they don't want that responsibility. They, like some people mistakenly believe that the goal should be to liberate men in the same way women were liberated, so that nobody's responsible. But you can't have a society if nobody's responsible. Obviously, somebody has to be responsible. So then the next fork in the road is, okay, well, then we need to force women to be responsible. We need to pull them up to 50% responsibility and accountability, just like men. But that doesn't work either, because women are physically, mentally, and emotionally incapable of doing what men do.
Well, I think it would be a better way to put it would be they have different biological skills and features, and therefore they'll react differently to different institutional pressures.
Well, you're being very, I guess, you're being very nice the way you put it. See, I'm very blunt because I don't care.
No, I don't care either. I'm just saying I see men and women are fundamentally complementary in some sense. I agree that there is some competition.
They can be. I look at women. Well, before we get to that, the whole crux of this question that I'm kind of leading up to is, given the last 100 years, the way marriage has become less and less of a good deal for men, is your position that men should continue to get married despite all these changes in the institution because Jesus said so, and because what the white race needs more babies?
Well, I'm not a racialist. I'm more focused on religion, so I'll go with the Jesus one.
Okay, so you believe they should still get married even if the institution has become completely unfavorable?
Well, the thing is, it's like saying, like, most people who fall out of planes will die. Will you jump out of the plane with a parachute? The marriage deal is largely what you make of it. You don't have to. Not everyone gets the same deal, and if you go for certain traditionalist women in certain communities, you can create a very workable situation. A lot of times we're reacting to marriage inside of what we traditionalists might term a broken sexual culture. And it's not surprising that people are going to get screwed over in this situation. So there's two things I think we really should consider. The first of all is what you're trying to get. Like, are you trying to optimize your pleasure? Because if you're trying to optimize your pleasure, you wouldn't do any number of things. You wouldn't start small businesses. You wouldn't take any risks. You just do drugs and play video games, right? If you're trying to actually achieve something, though, go for greatness, that only can be undertaken by taking on risks, like going to war, starting a business, trying to spend extra time trying to invent that thing, even though there's a high probability that you'll fail. All great things have to be accomplished across the probability of failure. however high or low that is. So I don't think it's a pertinent question. The draw to marriage is not caused by some kind of playing it safe, maximize the expected pleasure I'll get out of it. It's an aspirational calling that everyone knows is risky.
Well, let me change the subject slightly, but you'll probably see through my little subtle analogy. So imagine, let's think of business law for a second. So let's say me and you wanted to start a business together.
Yes.
We were going to form a partnership. So we thought about it. This partnership was going to cost $100 million. Now we could all bring, $50 million each and then have the 100 million and we'd be 50-50. But you don't have $50 million. You only have 10. So I'm going to bring 90. You're going to bring 10. No big deal, because we come to an agreement. We decide, okay, so I'm going to bring most of the money, but you're going to do most of the work. You're going to run the business. I'm going to enjoy the profits because I'm putting up the money. But then we kind of talk about it and we realize that I'm actually more experienced. I would actually run the business better than you because of my background. So we decided, okay, I'm bringing the money and I'm going to be doing the work and you're only putting up 10%. But in order to make things fair, because I'm putting up most of the resources and running the business, I'm going to be the majority stockholder. I'm basically what I say goes. You're going to more or less be my silent partner. You can tell me if you would like things to change, but I'm under no legal obligation to listen to you because I'm the one providing the resources and doing all the work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how some, and also if you were the majority shareholder or someone sued the company, you would be the one paying out.
Right. I'm bearing the responsibility. I'm putting in the resources. I'm doing the work.
Target you.
Right.
Okay,
so
that's broadly the justification for patriarchy. Yes.
Slow your roll. All right. So we're going to form this business together, but we happen to live in a country where the law says each partner gets half. So I'm putting in all the work. I'm putting in 90% of the resources.
Dissolution of the relationship.
Yeah, but then you can basically just come in tomorrow, say I want to dissolve the partnership, and then you get half the company. Plus, not only do you get half the company, I have to pay your salary for life. Now, if that were the law, if that were the law, and I said, you know what, I don't feel comfortable going forward with this partnership because not that I don't like you. You seem like a cool guy, but the laws are so heavily tilted against me that I just don't feel comfortable moving forward with this partnership. In your response was something like, oh, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You guys got to find the right partner. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not you.
Well, the thing is that, I mean, even
the law would be the problem.
I might agree with you that, there's two things. The traditional response to this is, well, divorce laws might in fact disadvantage men. I'm not so sure that there isn't. The first of all thing is I would have no problem with reforming divorce laws. I'd have to look at the bill. But as a traditionalist, I highly suspect that there is no legal regime of divorce that won't in some ways screw over one of the two genders. Women have all their market value come in early. So if you go into a relationship with a woman in her 20s, you keep her married for 10 years and you divorce her, and there's no financial punishment for that. Women will marry women when they're young, use up all of their implicit market value, and then divorce them, which people did do. So I don't think that there is a regime of no-fault divorce that won't screw over either men or women. Now, you may be right that our current divorce laws screw over men. I don't know. I'd have to look at the statistics. But I don't think that any divorce laws whatsoever wouldn't screw over somebody. If we equally divided up the resources, there would be an implicit screwing over of women because there'd be an incentive to essentially use up their fertile years and leave them high and dry when they entered their period of vulnerability.
Well, I can solve that easily. So you solve that by using private contracts rather than a one-size-fits-all marriage institution. So if I want to form a partnership with a woman, I'm basically saying I will take care of you for life and you're going to bear me children. That's a pretty sweet deal. However, based on the quality of the woman, based on what I bring to the table, we're going to haggle things out. She's going to want protections. She's like, how do I know you're not going to leave me when I'm 35 for a younger woman? Well,
how does she know?
Because we're going to put that just like a partnership. You ever heard of buy-sell agreements when you form a partnership? So if one partner wants out, the other partners have to buy out his stake, or take out life insurance on the other partners, so that if something happens to them, you basically can buy out their stake. You bake these things into the contract before the partnership is formed. You already work out how a quote unquote divorce would work. And if both partners don't agree that this is in their mutual benefit, the partnership never goes forward. So no partner's getting screwed. You work out, everybody brings what they have to the table, and then they negotiate what the value is between the two partners.
But people have no way of knowing how the values will. What if your wife turns out to be infertile? What if your husband gets sick? What if when we're talking about contracts that go over for 30 years, this doesn't translate into like the idea that two people essentially get each other's backs for the rest of their lives is not something that can be put into a contract. It's going to have to take something like commitment to a country or commitment to a military regime. Like, for instance, do you think the military should be run on contracts, like the individual soldiers sign contracts with the military or something like that?
They do. They take an oath really. And they sign a contract.
I mean, so can they like tear it up and not be accused of desertion?
I mean, and now they can. I mean, look at Bradley Manning. He's like the government doesn't charge people with treason anymore. But that's a complete.
The thing is, that if you were fighting an actual war and soldiers felt like they had they had negotiated contracts with the military, and we were taking Bunker Hill and storming D-Day, the military would just totally not function. It would dissolve in a second.
Well, it's like when you have female soldiers get pregnant.
F that, I'm not going to be the one charging German machine guns.
That's why women get
do need to do this, right?
Well, no,
nobody is going to sign a contract that will involve self-sacrifice. This is the fundamental thing that our modern society has to realize.
Okay, when I served 8 years in the military.
Yes.
Sign a contract, and you actually give up your rights when you join the military. You lose your right to freedom of speech. You can't just go in your uniform and talk to the press. You will get court-martialed.
Yes.
You can also be subject to things that aren't illegal for a civilian to do, but are illegal for you to do as a member of the military. There's all kinds of things. Like the government writes little loopholes into these contracts that you sign when you join the military that allows them to circumvent a lot of your basic rights as an American citizen.
I'm not saying that there isn't a contract involved. What I'm saying is that it can't be strictly contractual. It can't be seen as strictly contractual.
But that's what marriage is. Marriage is a contract. Like animals don't have marriage.
In military times, people gave up their lives, right? They didn't do that because they signed a contract. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I signed clause 25B that says that I have to charge these machine guns. They did that because they loved their country and they felt a primary loyalty to their country.
Or they were drafted and threatened they were going to be executed for desertion or cowardice or something like that.
I suppose, but that's not how soldiers in the past who have fought in frontline combat have seen their duty.
I mean, it depends.
Their writings.
Maybe. I don't know. When I served, everyone I served with, especially when you're talking about Iraq and Afghanistan, they never, on their worst day, they could not threaten the United States. They flew a couple planes in the World Trade Center. They crashed some trucks into some Christmas shopping centers, but there's no way they're going to overthrow the United States militarily. So we're over there just killing them by the thousands.
And I'm talking about generally how you organize.
Your homeland has to be threatened. Your homeland has to be threatened. You can fight to defend your homeland. You don't need a contract for that. But I'm talking the military.
I'm saying you need something of a primary loyalty to get soldiers to charge D-Day, Normandy Beach.
Well, you have self-interest. You don't need necessarily.
The soldiers who charged Normandy Beach were not doing it for self-interest reasons.
Well, because they believed in democracy and Western values.
Well, sure, but that's how you create relationships and organizations that actually involve self-sacrifice. And I hate to say it, the family is much more like an organization that involves self-sacrifice and much less like some kind of lawyer contract where you have to you give out a certain number of years and then you get.
The purpose of the contract isn't to animals form families without any sort of government, any sort of contracts. They meet someone, the chemicals fire off in their brains, they make babies, and they take care of the babies, and the animals do their animal thing. But the contract is important to protect, like you were talking about earlier. The woman has no protection if the man wants to leave her after she's hit the wall for a younger woman. She needs that protection. No, she's giving up her fertile years to this man. She needs some sort of protection to know that the man isn't going to abandon her. Now, the man wants some protections as well. He wants to know the children are his. He wants to know that his children aren't going to get taken away. Like, there's certain protections both parties desire, and that's where the contract comes in. The contract doesn't supersede love and, you know, all these the normal things that form families, because families are going to be formed. I mean, look at all the single moms. You obviously can have families without marriage. That the problem is you don't have good families without these sort of commitments. In order to protect the interests of both parties, you should have private contracts. The problem with modern marriage is it's been altered over the last several decades to favor the woman overtly at the expense of the man in the name of protecting the woman. So
No, but this is the problem. Marriage has whether you call marriage a vow or a contract or whatever. The fundamental thing about marriage is that it can't be a negotiation between two people to get things out of the other person. It has to be a contract of self-sacrifice by both people to the greater institution of the family. They have to acknowledge, both of them, that when they're going into it, they're sacrificing themselves for the family. That is what marriage has to be in order to do what it needs to do.
Okay, well, I disagree, because why can't it just be, you know what, I want children, you want to be financially provided for, let's make a deal. And,
I mean, is that working? I mean, this is the perspective that we've had for the last 30 or 40 years.
Well, it would work.
I mean, you're saying that if we got better negotiators for the male side, that we'd make it more fair. But I think it's just the entire idea that it's like two litigant parties trying to like get more stuff out of each other is what essentially has led to essential destruction of marriage.
No, you're using like trying to get stuff out of each other. Marriage is based on mistrust. The woman requires marriage. The reason why a woman wants a man to put a ring on it before she spreads her legs is because she doesn't trust him to stick around once she gets pregnant, once the gray hairs and crow's feet set in. She does not trust him to stick around. That's why women traditionally, they're the ones who impress upon the man to propose and get married, because the woman wants that protection. So the woman is trying to get something out of the man in the form of marriage. It doesn't mean she's not sacrificing. It doesn't mean the man's not sacrificing. When you take a job, you're sacrificing your time, but you're getting paid. There's mutual benefit. So it's not about replacing love or sacrifice or all these larger ideals that go into a relationship or a family. It's about shoring up the support so that the actual protections protect both parties equally, as opposed to only protecting the woman at the overt expense of the man.
I think it's the perspective that I think is really lacking, though. I think that, you know, I guess perhaps I'm not communicating this, but most people who signed up for war in World War I and World War II did not think that they're going to get more money out of the experience than they put in time. And that's the kind of attitude that people need to take towards developing a family. If you think that the family is something higher that you would be able to sacrifice pleasure and money for, then go ahead. Now, I agree that maybe we need to tweak the incentive structure in order to get more men to marry. But if it's just going to be tweaking the incentive structure inside the greater cultural view that we have right now, that this is fundamentally some kind of contract to get pleasure, it's going to be meaningless.
It's not about pleasure. And to your point about sacrifice and people going to war, people went to war. And I'm not just talking about World War II. I'm talking about any big war, especially one that necessitated a draft. They went there to defend their families and their home and their freedom. These are things they will sacrifice their lives for. They will die to defend.
They'll die to defend their families and their homes, right? So we acknowledge that men can sacrifice for their families, and that is what you're doing when you're aspiring to marriage. You're sacrificing for a family.
But you don't need marriage to have a family. So marriage doesn't accomplish what you think it does. Marriage is a contract. You can form a family with a man and a woman can come together. Just like two monkeys can come together and make babies and form a family, the male will go out and defend his little baby monkeys from the other monkeys or the other predators, and he will sacrifice his life to defend his family. No marriage, no government, nothing required. That is just instincts. That is the protective male instinct.
And yet in Western humanity, in contemporary Western society, we apparently don't form families without marriage.
No, we do. The problem is the men get pushed out.
Statistically.
So, you're talking about like single mothers and stuff like that?
Statistically, uh, when the family falls apart, women become single mothers. They don't like form up families in everything but the name marriage. I know that's what the Swedes were planning to do for a while, but it looks like even that's falling apart, just at a more slow pace.
Now this has everything to do with a complete lack of incentives for the man. In the last 100 years, whatever, all these single mothers, look at the single motherhood rates. They are consistently going up, and they're tied to the amount of welfare. The more money you pay people, all these, like, we're just going to throw money at you. In fact, in the 60s, and this especially hurt the black community, is they basically paid mothers to kick the father out of the house. Because if you had the father, if you weren't married, like if it was a man and woman with some kids together living in a house, the woman would get more money from the government if the father was not living in the house than if the father was living in the house. And this continues to this day.
Oh, I agree that
the family is poor. If a family is poor, they will get less money from the government. If the husband and wife and the kids are just poor because the husband lost his job, the mom's a stay-at-home mom, they just don't have any money, they'll get less money than if the wife leaves the husband. They'll actually get more money from the government as a single parent than as a married poor family. So the government incentivizes the destruction of the family through welfare.
I might agree with you in a certain regards. Again, it's policy details, but can I ask you a question? The question I'm interested in is from your perspective, is MGTOW just an attempt to reform this traditionalist institution so that we can better implement it in the future?
It can't be reformed. Unfortunately, and I've thought about, I've wargamed it. I've tried to think about possible solutions, and I've come up with some solutions. Some of them are quite controversial, obviously, but at the end of the day, you can't reform these laws because women vote. You're never going to get women to vote back their rights. The problem with marriage is women are too protected. They have too many rights at men's expense. The only way to bring back these family values, whatever you want to call them, is you have to take women's rights away. You have to scale them back. Women aren't going to go along with that. And because they're not only do they vote, they're the majority of voters. They're
I agree. They're the majority
of the population, and they're like about 53% of U.S. voters.
But the question was not whether you perform it or not. My question is,
what's MGTOW's role in this?
I mean, well, first of all, we could argue whether I guess I think where you're going is interesting, but I want to establish something before we go there. But regardless of whether you want, we can reform this institution in the government that we're in now. That's what you want to do, right? So we're all trying to get to this traditionalist family structure. You're just saying that the way we're going about it is not possible.
No, your heart's in the right place. Now, if you were what I call a gynocentric traditionalist, if you're of the mindset that regardless of how bad the laws are, men just need to keep getting married, keep having babies, just suck it up, walk proudly in that slaughterhouse. You'll probably get divorced, and if your kid's taken away and live out of your car and kill yourself. But, that's what we got to do as men. If that's your position, you can go F yourself. But if your position is we need to go back to a time where men were in charge of their families and men controlled, they had a very reasonable expectation of keeping their children, and things were balanced between the man and the woman. Obviously, the woman needs the protection. She needs assurances that the man isn't going to leave her. And society's done a terrific job of protecting the woman from men leaving them in the form of child support, alimony, and other negative kind of consequences for that behavior. But it's done nothing because it's liberated women. In the name of female liberation, female empowerment, it's taken all the shackles off of women, all the responsibility off of women. They can do whatever they want, no consequences. All the responsibility is put on the man.
But some men in society right now are able to make it. I could agree with you that our current marriage culture is totally poisonous.
Right.
But
now, would you go a step further and say men should avoid marriage currently because the current marriage culture is so poisonous?
I don't know what the point would be to avoid marriage. I can't see there isn't an alternative. There is not an alternative that I would accept as preferable. And that's because what are you offering me? I mean, more pleasure. I don't consider a pleasure to be the goal in life, right? I can be really, really unhappy that I have to charge a machine gun nest, and I wish the Germans didn't have machine guns. But I'd much rather, to go for the goal than, and brave whatever comes rather than submit to a life of essentially giving up.
Or let me play a little funny, like a movie scenario. So let's imagine you from the future comes back in time.
Yes.
So, and it's like, Dave, I'm future Dave, and I come with a message, buy Apple stock in the 90s. But also, if you get married, your wife's going to take your kids and divorce you, and you're going to be living out of your car and contemplating suicide. Your world's going to be destroyed. But your kids are going to grow up, and although they'll hate you because your ex-wife turned them against you, they'll be decent, functional, productive citizens, and they'll have families of their own. So go for it. Now, would you just?
You're asking me if I would.
Would
You're
you?
asking me if I would, if I knew ahead of time that marriage would destroy me.
If you knew it was going to blow up in your face, would you still sacrifice yourself?
You're acting like all marriages are like worst case scenario, I guess. I mean, it's interesting. I haven't thought of that. I mean, if for instance you were to use the war analogy, if you were a Marine going into D-Day and the future self said, Private Ryan, if you go fight in D-Day, you're going to get like shot as soon as the doors open on the amphibious vehicles. Maybe Private Ryan wouldn't decide to fight in D-Day. But if every single person decided to do that, then the war would be lost. I don't think the information is very useful at that regard. All it says is that you're doomed.
No, you're not doomed because you have a choice. Now, if you like,
I don't consider. I mean, I might consider joining the priesthood or something. I guess if I knew that
you wouldn't just come out of the closet. I'm gay. Send me home.
What?
You wouldn't just come, because this is back in World War II. Don't ask, don't tell.
Oh yeah. You
wouldn't be like, I'm gay. Send me home.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's just like, I believe in self-sacrifice when it comes to your families. So it's a possibility that you'd have to sacrifice something like that. Even when you get into.
Okay.
Well, so like for instance, let's say that future me came back and said, you're going to have a family and children, but then your child is going to fall into the ocean and you're going to drown trying to save them. Would you and you're going to drown when you're 27 and your whole life will be cut off. Would you still have a family? I don't know. I think it would be noble to do so, even though it would be an act of self-sacrifice, knowing that knowledge.
Well, to sacrifice yourself nobly is probably pretty masculine, I would say. But to just basically to give yourself up to slavery, to say, I'm going to do this terrible deal, and if you knew for a fact your wife was going to take you to the cleaners, take your money, put you on alimony, your kids are going to get turned against you, you were going to go to jail for back child support that you couldn't afford because she took you to court, you lost your job, couldn't afford your child support or alimony, went to jail, got raped in the shower room. Like, your life is just a series of unfortunate events.
You're saying like this is the thing though. Like,
well, that's
like
not a sacrifice. That's you giving up your freedom and just confining yourself to a life of misery. I would much rather die drowning in an ocean saving my child, or take a bullet from a German machine gun nest, than go to divorce court, live out of my car, get raped in a shower room, and then hang myself like Robin Williams.
I think that, though, this is the thing. First of all, I know people who've been divorced and who later converted to religions. There's ways of dealing with this that aren't as cucked, to use the alt-right term, as you're putting across.
Okay.
Furthermore, the thing is, it's just you're portraying the worst case scenario as if we can know it for a certainty. Like charging Normandy Beach is not the same thing as turning yourselves over to the Germans so that you can be sent to Auschwitz. Well, right. You're attempting something noble in the effort, and the worst case situation could befall you, but it's still something that you're trying to obtain. And I still don't know what the alternative is. Is the alternative just to sit on your hands and wait for society to change?
Well, it's pretty much a form of nonviolent resistance. The laws are unreformable.
Yes.
So imagine you're living in a society where you just are not going to get any sort of legal reforms. So the only thing you can do is just take your ball and go home.
But hold on, this is my big problem now.
Okay,
Has that ever worked with like societies of men? I know women can collectively like go home with their ball or ovaries, and
right?
and that works. That never works for men. It has never worked. You know what happens?
Well,
what happens when men take their ball and go home is that
right?
other more patriarchal men from a neighboring society come in and take.
They sure do. That actually, it's a
okay.
It's,
so what the heck? Like this isn't even an option. What you're recommending?
no,
It's not going to work.
There are two options. There are two options. No, feminism and feminine liberation. This is a self-correcting problem because it ends in one of two ways. You can't run a society that's built and maintained by men while cutting the legs out from under men, while disincentivizing families, while having fertility rates lower than replacement levels, while having entitlement programs going to women that are bankrupting the country. This cannot last.
I know, but you think it's going to be solved by men taking their ball and going home?
It's going to solve one of two ways. Now, one way is vastly more not realistic than the other. So the one you're describing is the natural way. The natural way is when a society becomes too gynocentric, it collapses. And it is replaced by a more patriarchal society. This could be Middle Eastern, Muslim, could be African, who knows? It's going to be a patriarchal society. It's going to kill all the men. It's going to take the women as war brides and rape slaves, and that will be the end of that society. And then the cycle repeats itself.
That's typically what's happened.
That is the historical cycle. Now, the alternative, the alternative is men pull their head out of their ass. They actually just say, you know what? We're just going to take. Like, it's not like we have to go kill a bunch of people and take the power. Men have the power. We just need to start using it, and not in the name of women, but actually have a society that's equitable to men. So if men just woke up tomorrow and decided we're going to take your rights away, and women are like, well, you can't do that. Oh, want to bet? And then we do it. That would be the end of the problem. And then no one would have to die. The women wouldn't have to be taken as war brides and rape slaves. But I don't see that happening because we have a democratic society. Women are the majority, and men are by and large cucks. And the more single mothers we have raising men, the more cucks. And it's
you're acting like that. You're acting like society is some kind of uniform culture. That it's all uniformly uniformly Portlandia, and there aren't pockets of tradition. And
no, there are. There absolutely are. You got the Amish.
So what's going to happen?
You got Dearborn, Michigan.
Mormons, look, there's tons of traditionalist communities in this country, and as soon as the collapse comes up, those communities are going to start becoming the seed of the new Western society.
Right, and I'm fine with that. See, what MGTOW is.
So why not be a seed?
Okay, well, see, here's the thing. When it comes, I'm open-minded to religion. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not particularly religious.
That's fine.
I will gladly. Now, most people aren't religious. Most people just kind of go along with whatever the predominant culture is. They live in a Muslim country. They'll pray to Mecca 5 times a day, even if they don't actually believe it. If they live in a predominantly Christian culture, they'll, say Merry Christmas and go to church once a week, even if they don't particularly believe it. So right now we're kind of in a post-Christian society. So I'm open-minded to religion. My standard is, back in the days of Moses and Jesus, they did miracles, which taught the people, hey, this guy's legit. Like Moses.
Or actually, Muhammad didn't do any miracles.
Muhammad didn't do anything. But Moses and Jesus performed miracles. They showed that they were true messengers from God. So
some prophets did and some didn't.
I want to see a guy floating in the air, teleporting around, raising people from the dead. When that happens, I'll be okay, that guy's legit. But just showing me a book that's a few thousand years old and saying you just gotta believe, that's like, no, that's Parappa the Rapper. So I don't listen to Parappa the Rapper.
I got that reference. That was a good game back in the day.
It was.
Now, first of all, I don't feel like I've ever seen a miracle, frankly. And I will point out that the big contending patriarchal force in the world right now, Islam, was essentially developed and perpetuated around the globe without any reference to any miraculous behavior anywhere.
Well, it was just spread
in the life of Muhammad, or even in the life of his successors. It's only Christianity that's really said, this central miracle is the seed of our church. So I would argue that I will defend Christianity against Islam, don't get me wrong, but just as a general rule, I will say that the performance of miracles is not, it's not necessary to making the case for traditionalism and for the continuity of a faith.
You can have traditionalism without religion. You can have a secular
You can have religion without miracles, apparently.
Well, you could, but the thing is you can't prove God without miracles, because there's no, like, when someone say prove God exists,
not so sure miracles would even prove the existence of God. I think you had to believe in God in order to even associate a miracle with
the existence of a deity. It would have to be something. It wouldn't just have to be someone like, you know how like a lot of people like believe in good luck, like stuff that's really vague, or astrology, where they read something in a horoscope and it's so vague that anything could fit it. Or like these psychics that say, do you or someone you know have a family member whose name starts with S? And like, I do. Like, my gosh.
Jonathan Edwards or whatever.
So it's a bunch of bull crap. So it would have to be something that's so miraculous that it can't be explained in any other way other than that is like an avatar of God or a prophet from God. Like he has to be like in the Bible where there's like thunder and people hear voices, and there's like bread and fish coming from the sky, and there's people walking on water and calling fire from heaven, and mountains being turned into dust, like crazy stuff that has no logical explanation other than that dude just said mountain be gone, and that mountain just turned into a puff of smoke, and it just
I don't think that there's lots of religions that have developed that do not have miracles associated with them. So
then how do you prove it?
Well, it's because people believe in the principles they're espoused and think that they're divine.
Or it's like, oh, you'll die and become a butterfly. It's like
most Christians didn't have never witnessed miracles.
But they're ones who like they took the word of someone who supposedly did. Like the apostles and the disciples who saw Jesus and saw his miracles, just like the disciples of Moses who traveled with him.
In the case of Muhammad didn't even claim any miracles.
No,
so.
Well, he just killed people if they didn't convert. That was how that worked.
Sort of. I mean, he had a lot of converts that he didn't have to threaten. So I don't know. I don't think that seeing miracles is really the necessary. No. And first of all, this is only tangentially related to religion, because, as we stated, traditionalism is not religion.
But you asked me why don't I become a seed? Why don't I join one of these traditionalist religious communities? And it's because I'm not religious. And I'm not religious because I don't see any proof of God. And I don't see any proof of God because there's no miracles.
Or even a secular seed community. There's tons of these, traditional.
Right. But the thing is the only communities that actually, like a woman, and I've said this before in many of my videos, women aren't the problem. The gynocentric society is the problem. When women are controlled, they're fine. They're like children or pets. If you train your child or your pet, bring them up correctly, they're delightful. Everybody compliments you. They're wonderful to be around. But when you don't train them or bring them up correctly, they're horrible. You have spoiled brats. You have dogs that pee and chew up everything. So you have to have them under control. And women are no different. Now you can have this without religion.
But again, I think our language on we agree on the problems. We probably describe it a little bit differently.
Right.
But I still don't understand why a man would see a society like it is in our stage and say, you know what, I want to be part of that new society that will come about after this one collapses. Mm-hmm. Or if there is going to be a renaissance in the society and the society will reform itself without collapsing, I want to be part of those family units that will force the reform to come about when society is threatened.
Well, the thing is the only communities where a man has a reasonable expectation of not being screwed over by the system is in traditional religious communities. So if he's not traditional, or he may be patriarchal traditional as opposed to gynocentric traditional, but he's not particularly religious, so it would be kind of like a hollow thing. Like it would be like trying to join the Amish and be like, I'm not religious or anything. I think you're full of crap, but you have like a divorce rate of less than 1%. Mm-hmm. So I'm down with that. So can I farm with you guys? I'll build some sheds. They're going to be like, no, get out of here. You have to believe.
Kingpin style.
Yeah, you have to believe. You have to be part of our religious community that comes with it.
So not that I support the alt-right. I have had many fights with them over certain aspects of racialism. But wouldn't they be an example of a traditionalist community that is secular?
I mean, I guess in some ways, but the thing is they don't necessarily want to control women. They basically blame minorities for the behavior of their own women. Like when you talk to racists, and racists of all colors, not just the white racists, but the black racists, all these race puritists, I don't even know that's a word, but these racists who say like, oh, you're taking our women, oh, you damn people of different colors.
It depends which ones you're talking about.
Well,
the more intelligent
no,
alt-righters absolutely blame the progressive movement.
Well, they blame they blame the Jews, they blame the Marxists. They don't blame gynocentrism. They don't blame female nature. Like they're trying to find a boogeyman, and like that's why they always turn to the Jews or they turn to the Marxists, because they don't want to blame their own women. And the black.
But you just said that didn't you say this 5 minutes ago that women aren't to blame? Our culture is for creating these perverse institutions.
Well, no. Well,
I think that's the thing, right? It's not anybody's fault. It's the culture's problems.
Well, nature is unequal. Nature made men, women vastly different. So female nature is a thing. Women have hypergamy, men have dominance. We have these different reproductive instincts that can be complementary, but they have to be structured in such a way. Now, for whatever reason, starting with about the French Revolution and then going on with Marxism, we decided that equality was a moral imperative and that we need to treat everyone equally, regardless of how fundamentally different we are. And that's when everything went pear-shaped. So the problem isn't women's nature, because if you understand female nature, it's not that hard to control. It's not that hard to have a mutually beneficial relationship with a woman. If you can appreciate that she can never truly be your partner, she can be your helper, but she's never going to be your equal. And that's okay, because you can both mutually benefit each other.
What you mean by equal?
Well, like
equal and opposite.
Well, I think that's kind of like a fairy tale that a lot of people tell themselves, like, yeah, women don't do anything, but they have babies and that's really important. So we're just going to say they're equal without any supporting evidence.
I don't believe in equality. I think equality is just a stupid idea.
Right. So me and you
complaining about someone like, oh, they're not equal. I mean, first of all, how would you measure it? Second of all, why would you even want?
Well, but here's the problem. So there's different forks in the road that people, when they see the problem, can come up with the wrong diagnosis. So one of the problems with the alt-right is they blame cultural Marxism for the problems with women rather than fundamental differences in male and female nature. Now, if you understand the differences between male and female nature, you'll see that Marx didn't really invent anything. He just gave women permission to act on their baser instincts, and he took away the controls that men traditionally had. But it's not, Marx didn't create anything that wasn't already there. So blaming Jews and blaming cultural Marxism is just like black people, like these Black Lives Matter people blaming white people for all their problems. It's just
I think that you're right in some sense. Cultural Marxism, first of all, blaming Jews is the stupidest thing ever, in my opinion.
Well, but
I hate people who do that, but or it's really irritating when people do that. But cultural Marxism, I guess you could say that cultural Marxism is a product of modernity. So the problem goes back a little bit sooner. But in many cases, the things you're complaining about how men are portrayed and how they're treated in certain circles is the result of cultural Marxism. So I am not so sure how.
But the thing is, but it's just like these. Like a lot of women have denounced feminism. They've declared that they're anti-feminist. Yes. But when you really scratch the surface, they're only denouncing third wave feminism. They're supportive of first and second wave. They're more or less egalitarian. They're not actually pro-traditional gender roles. They're not pro-man. They're just pro-equality. But me and you both agree that equality is BS. So they're still part of the problem. They're just a less advanced part of the problem.
But hypothetically, if there was a secular traditionalism that did not have these quirks of the alt-right that you don't like, it would be sort of a noble and commendable.
Well, if the alt-right, and the same thing with like the black community, if they would drop the white supremacy thing, just like the alt-right needs to drop the whole Jew cultural Marxism thing, if we all just get together, like, what worked? Men being in charge. That really worked. That had a very long track record of uninterrupted success. And then in the last 100 years, we done goofed. So how about we call a mulligan, we take away all these rights, and then we start over, and that way we can rebuild our communities. And we don't necessarily need to believe in like a wish-granting sky god. We just need to come up we need to agree that these things worked.
But here's the thing. The thing is, you're never going to get people saying men should be in power because they're men. No one will agree with that.
Men should be in power because they're responsible. You have to have responsibility and authority hand in hand.
Men will only gain authority through an appeal to a higher principle or higher cause. And that's why communities are never organized around empowering men. They're only ever organized around obtaining some transcendental cause that is above men and above women and for the greater good.
Okay, well, so my appeal to that, and I've talked about this, I mean, maybe not an entire video dedicated to this, but the relationship between authority and responsibility. So you can't have a party that is responsible but doesn't have authority over what they're responsible for. That creates an unhealthy dynamic. Because men and women just don't have the same responsibilities. Men basically have more or less all the responsibility. Even in the things women had traditionally been responsible for, they've been liberated from those responsibilities, and the responsibility has been placed on men. Just the perfect example is a woman can unilaterally decide she doesn't want to be a parent, have an abortion, or give up the baby for adoption, or drop the baby off at a firehouse without the father's consent. But a man who wants to have a baby, he has no say in whether that child is born. But if the woman wants to keep the baby and the man doesn't want the baby, he is just stuck paying for it. He doesn't get to opt out of parenthood the way the woman does.
I agree that there's asymmetries in our current system.
Right. Well, that's just one example. So men have the responsibility. Women do not have the responsibility. If you agree that authority and responsibility must go hand in hand, then men have to be in charge simply as a matter of justice. Now, just to use another example, the sentencing gap. So they've done studies where they found that women, when sentenced for the same crime as a man, get a 60% lighter sentence. It's very akin to juvie, where like a child would get a lesser sentence for committing a crime as a juvenile. So women have the same responsibility as a child in the legal sense, in a very real sense. If you actually think about it objectively, the way women are treated by our society is very childlike. So they should have the rights of a child. Men should be in charge because they are literally only adults in society.
But here's the thing: even if this were true, I'm not going to argue this. You're not in a position to take power right now, and secondly, no, men are never going to be empowered as a group. Specific men are going to be empowered to achieve some specific transcendental end. That's how it always has historically worked. So if you're going to say we need to be empowered to do X, you better have a transcendental end to fight for in order to bring about that new social order.
Well, yeah, men have a colossal problem working together because of our dominance instinct. We see other men as competition. Whereas women don't seem to have that much of a problem working with other women.
I should say unifying for their own interests, I should say.
Right. We need... Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to tweet the link out or to put it in the things that people can continue that thought, okay? Just FYI, people...
Yeah, because I got to leave in a few minutes.
So they're... Yeah.
All right, so, I mean, I guess kind of to summarize everything, the most rational action for someone who understands how gynocentric society has become is to withhold starting a family or anything like that because the situation is just not favorable. Now, you can say that it's a noble sacrifice for a man to make this terrible deal, even if it's unfavorable, because he cares about Western civilization and having children, and this is a noble thing for a man to do. I agree that it may be very noble, but it's also very irrational and stupid.
So my critique of this, I call this the MGTOW pyramid scheme. You know that if all men do this, that eventually society will collapse, and the pleasure you get out of doing this will be diminishing each time. So initially, when we're a functioning society, just going like, okay, we're not doing this, has a lot of benefit to you personally.
Well, you assume I don't want society to collapse. That's the only way things get cleansed. I got my bondage leather and my hockey mask ready to go. I'm ready for Mad Max.
Now, what you want to do is you want to form societies that when there is a collapse will be able to spring up as green shoots.
What I want, my impossible dream, as it were, is I compare myself, and this may be obviously for a YouTube channel with a filthy mouth talking monkey, but
It's very entertaining.
But you think of the founding fathers like George Washington, Thomas
Yes.
Jefferson. They were very influenced by writers such as Adam Smith, John Locke. Now, those men didn't fight in the war. They didn't serve as the founding fathers themselves. They had no hand in crafting the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. They just put out ideas that influenced those men. So my goal, the whole purpose of my channel, is I'm putting out these ideas. I don't have all the answers. I fully believe that the only way things get better is if things get a lot worse and society does collapse and a lot of people die. And that's not something I revel in. I don't want that to happen, but I don't see men doing what is necessary to prevent that from happening. So my goal is to put my ideas, hopefully, in the ears of the men who will someday, and I'm not going to be there, and obviously my children aren't going to be there. So my ideas will be there, hopefully, in the ears of those men, so that when they reform society, those ideas will help shape and help that society not make the same mistake that this society made.
But you think that walking away is going to be a value that a new traditionalist society will embrace?
No, MGTOW's a temporary phenomenon. It's a temporary phenomenon.
Yeah, because when traditionalism comes back, they're going to crack down on MGTOW hard and fast.
No, when traditionalism comes, when patriarchal traditionalism comes back,
sure.
When marriage actually offers equitable benefits to men, when men are restored to authority, there won't really be a reason to be MGTOW. I mean, there'll still be bachelors. There'll still be men who are like, you know what, I'd rather just not be married, whatever. Who cares? But there won't be a reason to have a fleshed out community of men who are unified and use an acronym or anything like that. There won't be a reason for that. The whole purpose of MGTOW is to counter the overt, out of control gynocentrism of society. And when that gynocentrism ends, whether it's through collapse and replacement by a patriarchal system, or whether the Western man just pulls his head out of his ass, then there won't be a reason to be a MGTOW anymore. MGTOW will effectively have served its purpose.
Oh, but there could be those communities coming up at any time now, right?
Well, I mean,
they'll be on small scale before they'll be on large scale.
Well, you're going to see kind of like the civil rights movement, like the NAACP. Yeah, these groups that accomplished their goal, like they overturned Jim Crow, and then a lot of people got off, like, hey, we did it, we won, and then they left, and they went back to their normal lives, and then those groups became more and more, I guess. What's the word I'm looking for? They started forming like kind of niche causes because their overall goals were already accomplished. Now, so I'm not saying they're all MGTOW will abandon MGTOW if gynocentrism is ever overthrown. I'm saying that most people will be like, oh, we won. Okay, cool. And they'll play that sweet victory song, and then they'll just go off into the sunset and live their lives. There'll probably still be people who may try to achieve further ends, just like there always are in any community. Not everybody has the same finish line. But for the most part, the community will kind of fizzle out once gynocentric, because it's really an anti-gynocentric movement. And not everybody agrees it is a movement. Most people just agree it's just a bunch of guys making videos, talking about their philosophy, and you can take it or leave it.
No, I mean, it's a very diverse movement, I acknowledge that. Some people seem like they're traditionalists. Other people think they're just nihilistic.
My screaming goat is letting me know I have to go.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, TFM, for joining me. It was a very enlightening conversation. And while we have our disagreements, I think we really pieced apart where exactly we disagree. So thank you again.
I don't think we're that different, because I'm not against patriarchal traditionalism. When I talk about being anti-traditionalist, I'm specifically talking about the gynocentric traditionalism, like what you see in these PragerU vids I do response videos for. Mm-hmm. So anyway,
we'll probably discuss it further. Thank you very much for joining me, and I know you have to go. Like I said, people who are watching, I've been tweeting out the link. I've been putting it in the discussion tab. If you're a MGTOW or interested in this discussion, please join, and we can continue the conversation. If I'm going to essentially just keep on talking for 15 minutes, and if nobody joins, then I'll just shut down the chat altogether. Otherwise, it's going to be a distributist open mic. Okay, so I guess if I could evaluate the differences between traditionalism and MGTOW, I think it. Well, I guess this certainly doesn't apply to every single MGTOW, but it seems to me that traditionalism focuses on transcendental good, and because of that, they're much, much less put off by momentary financial impairments and barriers to entry of institutions like marriage, which traditionalists see as transcendentally good. Because of that, I also think it's easier for traditionalists to organize into smaller communities to prepare to be the green shoots that will come up if, in fact, we are headed to total societal collapse, that I think is possible, and that TFM, I think, thinks is absolutely going to happen. So I'm not seeing anybody join yet. I guess I'm going to give it a 10 more minutes. Hopefully people will forgive this dead time. I'm going to tweet the join link out again. You can also Skype me if you'd like to get a link. I can send you one directly. I might edit this out in the final version. Okay. Another thing I also noticed in the MGTOW community is that this is terrible because I'm bringing this up at the same time that there's no MGTOW here to defend themselves. There just seems to be a very, very large amount of cynicism and nihilism. A lot of people saying that life isn't worth living, that the human race should be destroyed. I heard this from multiple people. Very, very depressed outlooks on existence. And I mean, I understand how depression might lead to MGTOW, but in some sense, it almost seems that MGTOW leads to depression in a lot of ways. Okay, finally, we've got somebody here. Hello?
Hold on. There's a bit of a repeat going on. I'm going to hurry and fix that.
Okay, just mute the window you have open on the chat.
All right. Sorry about that. So this is about the MGTOW. That was a great conversation. I was glad I got to listen to that.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. I feel like I enjoyed it. Glad you enjoyed it, I said.
Mm-hmm. It's been interesting looking at like the whole like traditionalism in MGTOW because I have kind of a foot in each camp because like I'm the last because I'm not really a guy who's ever been interested in marriage and all that, but at the same time it's like, you know, it's needed.
Yeah.
So it's always been an awkward position for me to really look at. But I'm trying to think, what was I going to say? But one thing I did notice was I always, for a while, I was leaning a little bit more towards MGTOW recently. Like I'm looking at stuff that happened with my dad who got really screwed over in his divorces.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he divorced my mom, he pretty much got his house taken away and tons of stuff taken away. And he still has like a ton of problems going on. And it's pretty depressing to look at.
Yeah, it sounds tough.
Yeah. And that's, I think the biggest core of the problem with the whole like women's rights and all that, with the whole like thing with the traditionalism and MGTOW is, you know, its core problem is that there is no core problem. There's tons of little problems that one solution can't really fix.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you got to try to.
Well, is that the case though? It seems that they all came about. It's hard to imagine that they are not correlated behind one root problem. You know, I mean, one root cause behind the scenes will have a lot of small little things pop up. I agree that's a barrier to legal reform, but I'm not so sure if it's a barrier to understanding that this has a common cause, right? That this comes from a certain place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say that there's a common cause, or maybe I should word myself better. At this point, getting rid of that common cause, there'll still be little branches that are self-sustaining that still cause a lot of the problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to me though that as I see what the cause is, it's modernity generally. People who view their relationship to all facets of society as being fundamentally that of a consumer, right? This rose in the 19th century, and that's the problem we're dealing with. I just think in terms of Slingy Monkey, I don't think there's a way to get the marriage contract to work if people view it as a consumer contract.
Right, and that's actually something I've hated about like the whole things like the gay marriage movement and all that is they never treated it like, you know, like it was like when I think of old marriage, I think of, you know, till death to us part and all that. But
yeah,
I think one of the biggest problems is divorce rates because now it's treated as like, you know, like you said, a product that you can take back.
Yeah, no, what's so funny is that it's correlated with this explosion in the wedding industry of doing these huge, ostentatious weddings that are way over the top. Oh, look at me, I'm getting married, is the sort of reigning attitude. Where
There was
that,
yeah, there was a statement I heard about that. It's not supposed to be about the wedding. It's supposed to be about the marriage.
Yes, exactly, right. It's almost like you're buying a wedding, and the marriage is almost it's an extension of that wedding product you're buying, and it can be ended at any time that it's not completely satisfying. And I think that is sort of we're getting at the core of the problem.
So how do you change that?
So we've got two people here, Jolly Crocodile and Joe.
Yeah.
So this is just gonna go on for 20 minutes till 11:30 or 11:40, at which point I'll have to get back to work. So
can you hear me?
I can. Is that Joe or Jolly?
Can you hear me?
Who's talking?
It's Jolly Crocodile.
Okay, I can hear you. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Is that Joe?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's Joe.
I think we're hearing everybody then.
No, this is Mashida.
Oh, okay. Hello. Yes, that is. So I think that's sort of the difference between traditionalism and MGTOW at the core.
How do you change that?
What?
How do you mentioned like the whole attitude towards marriage, and it's not about try to make it into some sort of consumerist.
Basically make it into a show.
How do you change that? How would you change that so that marriage is viewed as something more than just the wedding, so to speak?
Marriage can only exist inside a culture that has an understanding of the transcendent good. That can be a religious society, and all religions have an understanding of the transcendental good. It can also be a society that's more nationalistic, although I personally don't like nationalism. Marriage can exist within that context, but it can't exist inside a consumer context. Most societies have had, yes.
So from what I gathered from your discussion, you think that marriage is basically it's for the greater good. From what I gathered from your discussion,
so someone has the window to the chat open in one of their browsers.
It's for the greater good.
Okay, I think that fixed it.
From what I gathered from your discussion,
who is that? The window.
It's just Ray.
Browsers.
Is that?
It's for
That's
the greater
what's me?
good.
Okay, I think that fixed it.
From what I gathered from your discussion,
That the window.
It's just Ray.
Okay, so
can you hear me now?
I think it's Ray.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I muted him so we don't get the feedback. So yeah, I think that what I just said was essentially what I see as the core difference. I muted him so we don't get the feedback.
hello? Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, who is this?
This is Mashida. My question was, you're saying that marriage should be done for the greater good. Is that in other words, your argument is that it exists so society intact. Is that basically the crux of your argument?
That marriage exists to keep society intact?
Yes. I think he's saying that marriage has to be like it's not for the couple, but it's a societal thing. It's not supposed to be about the people marrying, but keeping the society functioning.
Well, it also can't be about the people marrying.
Marriage is the foundation of society.
It cannot exclusively be about the people marrying. That's a better way of putting it.
I mean that was how it was 200 years ago in agrarian societies. It absolutely was the truth that, literally, people lived in small, relatively isolated communities, and marriage was literally a way of keeping communities cohesive and forming alliances.
I think we agree on that, actually.
But I'm not sure how you're gonna transplant that I guess economic or social function into a post-industrial capitalist society. I don't. I mean, that need is not there. We don't live in those kinds of communities anymore.
Well, I think the need is there because you're seeing a lot of modern societies struggle with marriage falling apart and just the relations between men and women being so shit. And I think you do need it.
There's not going to be a society that lives on this earth that has a sub 1.5 birth rate. I'm sorry. That society is just dying and is going to be replaced by other human societies that do have higher than 1.5 birth rates.
Sounds like Planet is the end of.
I mean, in this modern context, what is the utility of marriage outside of transcendental whatever? Like, what is the economic value? What does marriage actually do for the economy or for social?
Are we talking the legal definition of marriage, or are we talking the spiritual definition of marriage? Because I think
legal. I'm not talking about
in some sense, what we call marriage now is so different than what we want marriage to be.
Right.
Yeah, but marriage has always evolved. I mean, it's been. I mean, marriage has always been first and foremost a legal institution. I mean, marriage predated Christianity by thousands of years. I mean, marriage was always first and foremost about a division of labor and creating babies. I mean, from day one, it was and also.
Okay, so by creating babies, is that not an economic input?
Well, what I was about to say is that the thing with marriage is that it doesn't have any benefit now. It's work, and people don't want to work for however long. Marriage is supposed to be hard work. People just want instant reward. And the other thing with children, maybe a kid would start working on the farm, 200 years ago at the age of 15, but now it takes 25 years to get a kid, working a job. Children are huge investments for massive, portions of time. It's not like how it was anymore. I don't think it can go back to how it was.
But that's the government. That's the government infiltrating the idea of marriage. They're the ones who keep it as okay. Now it takes till you're 25 before you become economically viable. That used to not be the case. That's government. That's government.
Nothing to do with the government. It's technology. You can't have a 16-year-old operating heavy machinery. It just doesn't work. Back 200 years ago,
you can have a 16-year-old creating video games, though. I mean, it's still. I guess it's relative in that aspect.
Yeah, I know. I think there's new opportunities for integrating the principles we know are essential to marriage in the new economy and in the new world. And if we do that, then there is a path back to doing what we know works, what we know has to be done to make human society thrive.
You don't need marriage to make babies. You don't need marriage to make children. I mean,
you need marriage to keep men in a family unit with women.
Correct.
That's what we care about. If you want to have a bunch of disconnected single mothers, I agree you don't need marriage. The question is, I'm totally uninterested in a society that's composed of a bunch of families where men are functionally not involved in their children's lives.
Yeah. So how do we get? Why can't you give men? What about shared parenting? Why does you don't need to have a marriage contract to get fathers involved in their children's lives?
Yes, you do, because how do you assure men that the thing is that with shared parenting, which is shared parenting, I don't think people have actually thought this out. It's just a buzzword that people who don't want marriage use to say, oh, well, we can do it. But the thing is that if you have shared parenting, then there's very, very little understanding of who's child, right? And men will become emotionally disinvested unless they're actually part of the family unit that produces the children.
I'm about to.
How would the children either? Like if the parents separate and the kids constantly going back and forth between the mother and father, which I had that happen for a whole year of school, which was fucking hell.
Yeah, I think it's terrible in the children as well.
I was about to say that
for the kid, is that the role of the man, just to be a provider? So it's much better to just have the man who pays for the child and the woman takes care of the kid. Somehow that's
Yes, that is way better. That is preferable.
You really think that's a better father?
Yes.
I mean,
yes, I do.
One is good.
so
Okay, so I asked. Hold on. I asked earlier in the comments, how many people in here? There's like what 50 people at the time. How many were actually married before?
How many were what?
How many have been married before? Like, are you currently married or have been married?
No, I haven't. I don't know.
I haven't, thank God.
Okay. How many of you came from single parent households?
I
Me.
came from a dysfunctional married fat couple.
My mother has been married twice, and my father's been married twice. So, double
So you
failure
don't
right
think
there.
you don't think
My
that
mom's been
seeing
married 3
dysfunction
times.
has clouded your view of what normalcy is? Now, normalcy being the marriage unit, the kids, the father provider, all that other stuff. Since you didn't have that, now you have this weird sense of normalcy, and now you want to fight against what traditionalism actually is.
Well, no, you might be mistaking my position for someone else's.
I might.
I
Seriously, we're all individuals here. I understand. I'm just kind of making these blanket statements because I think when we get down to the root cause of everything, it's that we don't have a sense of what normalcy is. We're probably all under 40 here.
Yeah.
We don't know the world that our parents has lived in.
There's never been a normalcy. All society's been changing for hundreds of years. Society's been in a state of flux. The last
I think there were institutions that lasted for hundreds of years at the very least. I mean,
the family has been going for tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
Everything. The Industrial Revolution, marriage. We went from no divorce to fault divorce to no fault divorce.
There's the key. The no fault divorce is definitely a linchpin here.
Well, actually, the no fault divorce thing.
Linchpin, or maybe the steam engine is the linchpin. I mean, you're blaming it. I mean, you're making it sound like it's
no. That's you're saying technology changes biology, right?
No, it doesn't change biology.
That's the argument that you're making.
It changes our biology has never changed. Our biology has never ever.
So how does the Industrial Revolution change the nuclear family?
Well, actually, I would say the birth control pills.
Also, guys, can I say something here? I can't. I'm moderating this. We act like we do not have traditionalist communities in this country where the model does work.
Right.
So it's not like it's not like we're sitting here with never seeing how traditionalism operates in the modern world. I mean, Mormons are part of the modern world. You might think that they're what?
MGTOW is famous for disregarding everything that does work just so that they can feed their biases on what doesn't work.
Well, I'm not a MGTOW exactly.
Well, we're talking about MGTOW, right?
Religious people have higher divorce rates than secular people, and I know you're going to dismiss that and say that they're not real Christians.
No, I think I know the statistic you're citing, Mashida, and that is people who claim to be religious. If you go to the people who actually attend church, then the opposite is true.
I'm a
people
Christian.
who actually attend church. Not people who nominally call themselves Christians, but the people who actually practice the religion have lower divorce rates.
Are you an authority figure on who's a real Christian and who's not? Are you an authority figure?
Mashida, did you just say you're a Christian?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so
what was this business in the chat section about you saying, God is this? I've had arguments with you on this channel.
Mashida, you're demonstrating right now the distinction. The distinction is people who practice Christianity, not people who say they're Christian just out of the blue like you are right now.
Who practices Christianity right? Catholics or Protestants?
No,
which one?
It's the practice of attending a community that's the relevant statistic here.
Or attending to a community.
Attending to a community. Attending church and regularly praying. If you go to those people, not people who say they're Christians, people who actually practice it.
So you're saying that study was flawed because those people that said they were Christian didn't actually go to church.
That study wasn't flawed. You can look at the breakdowns. I'm saying you're not looking at the right statistic. The right statistic that's relevant is people who actually perform the religion. And when you look at that statistic,
I looked at the statistics closely, and the South has one of the highest divorce rates, and also has the highest teenage out of
wedlock birth rates. It's also the most religious. It has the most church buildings, actual physical brick structures. So you can't tell me that statistic was just pulled out of thin air.
The thing is, you have to break it down. This is the thing I'm telling you here.
Break it down for me.
I just did. If you look at the people, the South has a lot of people who don't attend church and who call themselves Christians and who are very poor. That's how you're getting the family breakdown statistics, by reference to those populations. If you look instead at the people who actually attend church, who actually pray, who actually perform the religion, then it goes into reverse.
Then there's also the whole fact that there's there's a large black community. I live in the South. There's a large black community here in the South. And when you look at those rates, don't you think that pulls the overall numbers down in statistics?
Yeah, poverty in different ethnic communities definitely contribute as well.
Yeah.
Another thing is that distributionist is only focusing on the religious aspect, but I'm sure you can find different things to look for, like amount of education or sexual partners that can limit the dangers of getting married.
Yes, that's true as well. If you have lower amounts of sexual partners, your risk of divorce goes down. If you are more educated, your risk of divorce goes down. These things compound.
Now, I have
the education and wealth. That's obvious. I mean, that's obvious that people with more money tend to get divorced less. But I mean, that's not. I don't see
doesn't
how
that fly in the face of the whole MGTOW, like, money's the whole thing, and then women divorce men purely because they have money. So wouldn't you expect
I mean,
higher divorce rates and the higher incomes?
I have MGTOW sympathies, but I don't think they're entirely right. I think their general a lot of them are actually pretty selfish, but I think they're
MGTOW preys on those sympathies. I mean, haven't we all been burnt by women before? I mean, come on.
Everyone is selfish. Every living organism is selfish. We wouldn't exist without selfishness.
That's a very Darwinistic view.
No. It's selfish to the point of they don't want to have family or children and just play video games to their 70. I mean, it's a different level of selfishness.
Could I say one more thing before I go?
Oh, sure.
I think the biggest thing that causes problems with marriage is a lack of understanding of things like, the for better or for worse. Like a lot of people, and they rush it. And I see a lot of people who rush into marriage get screwed over because they have that kind of, the partner is there to assist me, from both men and women.
Absolutely true.
So when reality hits, there's give and take and problems that still show up, they just kind of figure, oh, well, screw it. And then it goes back to the consumer thing with this is a bad product. I want to
Can I interject one idea about that, though, is that, we have people that are getting married and both are saying we don't want to have children. So, people are getting married, they're not having children. And I can guarantee you most of those are going to be your divorce rate, because the whole idea of marriage is for children. So if you get married and you and your wife both say, hey, we're not going to have children, of course you're going to get divorced at some point.
Because there's no point to getting married without having children.
No point to getting married without children. Therefore, marriage, the purpose is about having children.
Well, I would argue that
there's also things like, having children with a particular mate. So, marriage does, in a legal sense, bind that.
You don't need marriage to have kids.
True, but it's kind of I viewed marriage as an extension of the idea of an alpha male, having a mate or whatever. But
but all the stats say that you're better coming off. You're better coming from a married family. So if you want to use stats to back up one of your points of view, use the other stats to say, hey, well, maybe I'm a little bit wrong about this.
And I think, a lot of people are a little bit wrong, a little bit right. There's no, still trying to figure out.
It is 100% correct. Now, come on, give the guy his dues.
Men need to be involved in their kids' lives and not just be there for to provide. Feminism came from traditionalism. Without traditionalism, there would be no feminism.
They're allies, but they're not
general
the same.
sense, I suppose.
Feminism.
Well, I need to head out.
Really, the core ideas of feminism, that men are responsible, comes from traditionalism.
Okay, so then how does that play into feminism then, that men are responsible?
I think
stop rape. Men can stop rape. You don't think that's all the basic ideas that
men don't rape women, rapists rape people. All men are not rapists.
I mean, I'm not even sure there's a reason to talk about feminism. It's like an ideological graveyard. It's nothing interesting going on there. I agree that feminism
both
wants.
They're both
want-
kind of.
I'm sorry, you
But
go.
at that level, what is there other than gynocentrism? If you just defined it as every ideology that's ever existed.
Good question.
If you like pussy, then it's gynocentrism.
No, that's a very good question. And no one really knows. No, we don't have the answers. There's no blueprint for society. It's not like
Well,
it's not.
It's probably that. It probably if you notice something like that, it's probably because the alternative fails instantly as soon as you try it.
Has it ever been tried? Have you? I mean,
Probably has. I mean, probably.
Countries that have shared parenting, their birth rates are actually increasing. I think like France. I think France is one of the. France and Ireland.
France and Sweden's birth rates are increasing because they're importing patriarchal immigrants that have high birth rates.
Thank you.
That's not the only reason. That is not the
That
only.
is predominantly the reason when you look at the ethnic breakdowns. The reason why you can't tell in France and you can tell in Sweden is because in France they don't collect racial data.
Yeah,
But
it's
considering
illegal.
that we have actual data from Sweden that shows that, I have a pretty good bet that's what's going on in France too.
Well, I
So
mean,
you.
Africans breed to fill a void. I mean, Africans are gonna have immense birth rates wherever they go if they have enough food. I mean, the distribution is right here. European countries have shit birth rates. It's not them.
More food seems to mean less people for some reason. Well, I mean, because of birth rates, people die. You need to have 10 children so that 3 survive. So I think statistically that's probably a little off too, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's this whole idea of this K versus R selection theory that I'm highly skeptical of.
I'm skeptical. It's a cool theory, though.
I know. I feel like there's some definite flaws about it, but at the same time, I feel like there's something there too. So more analysis is needed to actually examine that, but that's not what this hangout is for currently.
True.
I think about 10 more minutes, guys. Do you think?
Well, never mind. What was this theory? This R versus K theory? What was this
I
about?
was about to bring that up.
I'll just overview it briefly. It's a sort of heretical genetic theory that was repeated by Bill Whittle. The idea is that certain human populations replicate through R-type selection, which means that they produce a lot of offspring with low investment. And certain other human populations produce by K-type selection, which means that they produce few offspring with high investment. And that K-type selections are people who build societies, and R-type selections are the ones who sort of exploit incentive benefits in those societies.
Why is this controversial?
Because there's very little evidence for it. It's just a theory.
Well,
It's
it
totally
labels one
exposed.
class. It labels one class kind of as a moocher class, and the other class is the stabilization of the society. So clearly,
Yeah.
anybody that's in the moocher class is going to have a huge problem with it. You know.
Has anyone supported this theory who goes like, "Yep, I'm an R type"? You know,
Never once. I've never
right?
seen it.
No, it's always we're the K types. They're
Oh
the
no,
R types.
no. All the R types they're in the ghetto and they don't have computers and they, you know what I'm saying? Like
There's I feel like there's something there, but it sort of feeds on racist and
well, it's like
classist
IQ.
and-
It's like
Yeah,
IQ. Surely there's something there.
Yeah,
Hold
but
on,
it's-
are we only going to talk for 10 more minutes?
I mean, it's not really racist. It's just those. I guess the R type is the high birth rate. I mean, those are agrarian societies. I mean, agrarian societies have high birth rates.
We all came from agrarian societies, and there were R's and K's during the agrarian society. It's literally a biological split.
Well, hold
Is that
on.
what-
Are we only going to talk for 10 more minutes?
I have.
I can stretch it on for a little bit longer. I just have to get going at some point.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's sad. I would have liked to talk about this more. My opinion on the R and K stuff. If you heard Stefan Molyneux talk about it, he was almost trying to come up with the reason not to genocide the R's. I mean, everyone that talks about R and K, they have to make a reason why R's, are valuable or something like that.
And they'll move right to the IQ with that as well.
Yeah, but everyone's becoming K. I mean, the birth rates are declining everywhere in the world. I mean, even in the
not
middle,
everywhere.
except for Africa. I mean, the least developed parts of the world. I mean, divorce rates are increasing in Persia and Saudi Arabia. I mean, the birth rate in the West was starting to decline by the end of the 19th century. By the 1920s, I think women were producing 3 children on average, as opposed to 7, like a century earlier.
I don't know I don't know what it is, but it seems like modernity or technology. I don't know, but it seems to just destroy the human soul. You can see
exactly.
It doesn't just
something else I wanted to say.
It
Something
liberates
else.
our biology. I mean, what women want is just fart out kids.
It liberates our biology to the point that we stop having babies. Really?
Honestly,
I mean, what women wants to fart out kids? You think women enjoyed farting out 7 goddamn kids?
Yes,
I know
they
a
do.
lot of
Yes,
women
they
who
do.
love
Yes,
having
they do.
children.
I think
media
it
tells them
triggers
otherwise.
certain emotions and instincts.
7, really? I mean,
Maybe maybe not 7, but I mean 3 or 4. I think that's acceptable.
I know women who like having who love having
kids. Why
hold
did
on,
if
Hen.
that's the case, if
I'm muting. I know women who like having lots of children. Let's establish that they exist. Okay. I just need to say that.
I wanted to bring something up before the talk is over. What if marriage can't be fixed, or at least you can't sell it to? By the way, there's some guy who wants you to unmute him, Ishray. I don't
You
know.
have to unmute yourself.
Oh, but what if there isn't anything you can do to fix marriage? Do you have to create something new? I mean, I don't think society's they're not gonna buy it. I don't think you can resell marriage or
Oh no, we'll
traditionalism
collapse.
back to
We have to
modern society.
collapse. We have to collapse
Well,
before we can
you have to
fix
go
this. That's
to
the whole problem.
You have to go to the very bottom of the abyss, I think, before you can build society back up. But
Man, all they gotta do is shut off the money supply, dude.
what if I think scarcity could fix this, but what if
Will
marriage?
fix this.
Well, yeah, yes, but
There's no other option. I mean, we're heading there right now.
okay. Well, besides the collapse, what if you wanted to make? Is there something that could take marriage's place? I don't mean like the shared parenthood. That shit sounds strange. But is there new institutions that could arise? That's what I'm trying to find out, because I don't think marriage is going to work anymore. Modern women are pretty terrible in this aspect, at least all the ones that I've known.
Well, I think gay marriage probably did ruin marriage. I don't think we can go back to calling it marriage unless we have to get rid of the internet. We have to get rid of all the ideology and then get back to the simple aspects of man and woman and children.
Robert Paulson, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have.
Old bitch tits.
Yeah, old bitch. That's right.
His name was Robert Paulson. His name was Robert Paulson. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for the people who. There were a few of them, and I haven't really been keeping track of the people that've been coming and going, and some of them has said that marriage, that human beings are essentially selfish and it's all biology, and that marriage is fundamentally or at its best, or it is only. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he supported the idea that marriage is just a really strong contract, like a financial contract. My question is, given the opportunity, and I mean, I don't want to make this sound gay or nothing, but would you marry your best friend? And really think about that.
I would prefer my wife to be my best friend. I don't want to have a best friend outside of marriage.
Ideally, right. And because there's different types of relationships out there, and I see love, like the concept of love and the actions that are done with love as an end in mind, are fundamentally anti-contractual.
Well, are you talking about romantic love, or are you talking about familial? I mean, there's so many different kinds of love. I think we buy a Hollywood version of love.
It's not contractual, but it's definitely mutually exploitative.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't. Yeah, I think if you're exploiting it, it's not love.
I kind of think, at least to some degree, both sexes are trying to get the best out of the other partner. Not necessarily like exploiting, but they're trying to get what they want.
Jolly Crocodile, would you say the same thing about friendship, though?
I mean, to a certain extent, all social interactions are transactions. I don't believe in Briffault's law, but I think maybe. But friendship is a little different, because you don't necessarily need to meet certain requirements for friendship. I think with something like a marriage or a romantic relationship, you both have an understanding of certain things that you have to do.
Well, I think that understanding has probably changed over time, because, back in the day, with arranged marriages and everything, it was about, like I said, having children. I don't think that love really had anything to do with it. Love comes from when you have children and you both love those children, you then love each other. I don't think this idea of romantic passion is appropriate to marriage.
Well, didn't the Greeks have the 3 stages of love, or the maturities that it goes through in
well,
life? I think that's true.
There are sort of 4 loves, like the philia, the eros, and the
Yeah.
agape, right? And there's one other. There's storge is the other one. But I think, I don't think that friendship is necessary for marriage. I think it's a noble goal to make your wife your best friend, but it's certainly not necessary for a marriage to work. There have been plenty of successful marriages where the 2 people did not have sort of like a classical friendship.
Yeah, look at Anthony Weiner and what's her nuts.
Huma Abedin.
I'll never
or the
forget
Clintons.
that.
I mean, these are convenience marries.
I was about
The ultimate
I'll never
contract
forget
marriage.
Well, it's like a crime mafia marriage with the Clintons. But I'll never forget that Hillary Clinton's campaign was destroyed by A. Weiner. I mean, it really is. It's like meme magic.
Irony of ironies.
Oh, we're through the looking glass as a culture on every single level.
Oh, have you heard
Yeah.
the theory? There's like a paradox where, or like some kind of funny theory where ever since nuclear weapons were invented, every timeline that made sense would have already destroyed themselves. So we're in the timeline that doesn't make any sense at all.
I can get on board with that.
It's appropriate. But I don't know. Did anyone have any ideas on what could replace marriage if you can't fix it, and if we don't have some kind of terrible collapse?
It'll just happen organically. There'll be no. Society. A lot of these things just arose organically over time. I mean, like marriage arose organically over time. There was no blueprint in the beginning.
Well, there kind of was, because look at how long we have to take care of our children. I mean, they're in the womb for 9 months. That woman needs to be protected. The child is then born and is completely dependent on the parents until I forget what
the tribe would raise the child. It was a collective endeavor in tribal societies. There was no.
That's a rewrite of history. That's a rewrite of history. Well, I think it's still boiled down to the nuclear family.
There was no nuclear family.
No. What you're talking about is the extended family, not like some communism where a tribe raises everyone.
Yeah, this has been the big hat trick feminists have done. They're like, the nuclear family isn't traditional. Yeah, man, the extended nuclear family is traditional. It's a variation on the nuclear family.
It still starts with the nuclear.
It's a complete.
It's a sleight of hand. They do try to cut the feet out from under traditionalism, but it's just utterly dishonest.
How is it dishonest? How is it dishonest?
It's dishonest because the extended family is an extension of the nuclear family.
No, the extended family the nuclear family and the extended family are 2 separate things. They're not.
They're basically just extension. One's just an extension of the other. One's just it's like saying donuts and donut holes are different things.
Yeah.
One exists
donuts, okay? Like.
Yeah, but the structure on which the society was founded was different. In agrarian societies, the extended family was like it was an economic unit. They would actually live all under one house, and they would be tied to other people in their community. It wasn't.
Your aunt give birth to you,
the mode of production was different. It wasn't a time before currency or not much currency. It was a completely different system, and people were obligated to people that were older than them and the people above them in their community. It was the nuclear family is something that only it started to exist in the 1900s.
Oh God!
I mean it exists, but the extended family.
You're switching back and forth between, okay, it's a system thing, or it's a biology thing. You just said earlier that it was a biological thing.
Both. Human beings are biological creatures that create systems that suit their biological needs.
Right. So the biological need of the nuclear family. I mean,
I think the nuclear family
is biological need of the nuclear family. There's no love.
Desires.
In the 19th century.
We also create things to suit our desires, just saying.
Yeah, I think the tendency to have nuclear families means there's at least some kind of biological need. But the other thing is nuclear families have existed within extended families. And I think you're thinking of the pre-agrarian, hunter-gatherer, where it was all communistic. I don't think it's right. Agrarian was definitely not as communistic as you're making it sound like.
It was highly communal. Agrarian societies we're small, tiny communities.
Yeah, it was communal, but it wasn't like children being raised by the entire tribe or something like that.
And all nuclear families being built into a collective that still involves a nuclear family.
Right, and were those the societies that we came from? I mean, like, we can look back and we can look at societies that acted a certain way. Are those the ones that we came from? No, they're the ones that died off.
Every now and again, you get like matriarchal societies and societies that raise children collectively, like in New Guinea somewhere. But there's no evidence that any of the major civilizations or modern nations evolved from those types of societies.
Yes.
And there's every amount of evidence that the societies that the current civilizations evolved from were all the same kind of slightly patriarchal nuclear families that we think are traditional. And this whole sleight of hand where we take like the nuclear family and treat it like it's something massively different than the extended family is just, it all is a feminist talking point that's designed to confuse people.
No one's disagreeing with you. The point is, there's nothing natural, there's nothing biological about the nuclear. That's like saying government is biological. You're trying to make an argument that the nuclear family somehow has some sort of biological argument.
It does. It takes a man and a woman to have a child, dude.
Well,
that's biology.
You don't need the government for.
That's a little sideways.
Well, hold on. First of all, the government is a biological function. Human beings are collectivist, and they tend to coalesce and have power structures. The other thing is like Distributionist said earlier, you know, if you don't have marriage, the man knowing who his child is, it doesn't direct, you know, that sexual or some kind of energy towards civilization. If you just have,
That's why we
orgies,
don't need it anymore.
No,
we don't need it. We have DNA
if you
testing.
just have orgies and no one knows who's the father, you know, the men aren't going to put any time and effort into the children.
But you don't need. That's why we don't need marriage anymore. We have.
You're back to saying technology. You're right back to saying that technology is usurped, like that we can use technology to overcome our biology. And I think that's huge.
We live longer than we ever have before.
That's not true. That is not true. You are misrepresenting the statistics. It's the infant, dude. It's the infant mortality rates that make our lifespan seem like they're longer. People always
agree with that.
Well, we are still living long. That's true. I mean, a lot infant mortality is much. I mean, it skews it. But even if that aside,
but that's another feminist tactic. I mean, they have been using that for decades.
I think when you say
tactic,
I think when you say technology, you should probably be focusing on the birth control pill, because if anything, that seems to have the most effect on marriage and relationships.
And abortion.
Well, I guess that too, but
air conditioning didn't have an impact, or car. It's all had an impact. Our society.
No, it has an impact, but it's a negative impact.
It's also an impact that doesn't solve the overarching question, which is where are new generations of humans going to come from, and how are they going to be organized?
Ever see the movie The Matrix?
Well, I either see two. You know, I don't think you're going to have any artificial wombs. Those are too expensive and impractical. I mean, the only way I can really see it happening, if we're really going to go through if scarcity and collapse aren't coming, which I think they are, but if they don't come, what we're just going to have is the genetics that can't prosper. You know, they just go off to the city and they be leftist and socialist, and they all die off. And the traditional families have 3 kids, 4 kids.
Absolute valid point.
And it's like some kind of regeneration.
So let me ask you a question then. So if you're
sustainable model,
you seem to say that somehow traditionalist society was better, that people had better lives hundreds of years ago, that whatever, they lived longer, they had a better diet. So if that's the case, why are people not migrating from Europe and America to other parts, to places like the Middle East? Why is immigration?
That's hyperbolic, dude.
No, but it's like saying, you know, hold on. It's like saying why is. God damn it, you go.
You say modernity is soul crushing, and that I mean I hear all these criticisms. Listen, I don't think. I think there's a lot of things about modernity I don't like. I'm not like, I don't think it is what it is. It's not. I'm trying to be value neutral here. I mean, there's a lot, like, I don't. It's in some sense we're out of touch with our nature. That's absolutely true. But I mean, you have to make some sort of. You seem to be implying, and I could be wrong, that somehow life was qualitatively better hundreds of years ago.
Way better. Yes, way better. I'll make the case that it started with electricity piping to our houses. Because
How was
I would
life?
say that the what you're trying to say is people flocking to modern and hyper advanced societies and all that stuff. I mean, it's like saying cotton candy is better than salad because people prefer cotton candy. I mean, it's not necessarily good for them that people eat sugar and salt all the time, but they still do it. They just
So
prefer it.
explain.
Instead of,
So explain to me how it's better. Explain to me how.
well, first you got to understand that
Explain.
every solution has problems of its own. There is no perfect
True.
solution in life.
True.
I mean, I don't think traditionalism, like going back to the Stone Age, is better because I don't know, we lived happier. The things are that there are certain parts, like having extended families, valuing the nuclear family, uh, connections beyond just shiny shit and the new electronics. There are things that are important that traditionalism focused on that modern society doesn't seem to give a thought about.
So
It's
why
not.
do you think that is? Why do you think that is? I mean, you bring up a good point. So why do you think people don't value that anymore?
because of the
Honestly,
television. I mean, it's that simple.
Why?
I'm,
They've been
Why?
telling us through advertisements and movies and commercials that we are supposed to act a certain way and be a certain way, and it is all counter biological. It is all not
So
our
you think
nature.
that people are just dumb shits that will buy whatever's fed in front of their face? Is that it? It's people are just we were brainwashed into being communistic.
There's a critical mass of
TV
people that are
buyers.
like that.
Hold on.
So
Okay, hold on, guys. Most people do not struggle against the societal assumptions that are put before them. That's not a detraction on their personal characters. That's just how people ordinarily operate. A very, very small number of people actually question the societal assumptions around them. And that's just how it is. And we have to deal with that, right?
it's not just that, but it seems like you only have a small number of rule makers that actually decide what's going on. And most of society, I would say 98%, doesn't really seem to care what's happening. If we were all living in Nazi Germany, would most of the people really care? I mean, they seem like they just wouldn't give a thought about it, or they'd just be okay about it.
So who decides what's best for everyone else? Who decides what's best?
You do.
No, I don't.
You decide what's best for. Okay, listen to this. Listen to this. Let me just make this one little point. So,
Go ahead.
the Industrial Revolution. Do you think everybody willingly left their farms and went to go work in factories? Like they're just like, fuck it, and then we're just going to go work in this shitty ass factory? Or do you think that they were coerced into those factories?
There was a lot of coercion.
It was almost complete coercion. It was almost complete coercion, and because they knew that it was going to be that case, they started promoting ideas of breeding that would lead to lost people that would just wander into the cities and work in these factories. There's been so much social engineering that has happened since then that it's so hard to tell what is biological and what is manufactured.
So let me ask you this: would you agree that people in general tend to want to they pursue their own self-interest, right? Is that not true?
Well, that's true of now, but I think back when you were raised by your family and you stayed on the farm, I think it was part of your culture that you were part of the collective of your family, and there wasn't that selfish.
You don't think culture is a survival mechanism? You don't think any of these? You don't think that people do these things just so that they can survive? I mean, people back then were highly collectivist because they didn't have a choice. They didn't have there was no alternative. You seem to think
You think the alternative is a good thing. The alternative is not just an alternative; it is a bad thing. It is moving us away.
Well, hold on. I think someone asked if friendship is
it's not
I think,
good or bad.
Yeah, well,
It exists. That's like you're trying to say this is good.
Break it up, man.
It's bad. I mean, human civilization.
I'm not getting Machida at all. Or
I can't hear you, Joe.
him?
yeah, you're breaking up, buddy.
So I think we've explored the difference in worldview between Machida and Captain. So we have about 10 more minutes. Do people have more? There's a question about people thinking friendship is biological. But I'd like to just see if we couldn't return to sort of the core disagreements between MGTOW and tradition before we end at 12 o'clock when I have to.
That's such a wide gap.
Okay, well, I guess I'll take a crack at some of the things I have. Try and wrap it all up.
Okay.
What I see with the friendship question, is it based on self-interest? I mean, everything's based on self-interest. It's not a charity. I don't hang out with people I hate. I don't really know. Just because I'm not giving them money or giving them a good or something doesn't mean it's not self-interested. are getting something from them. The other thing, the differences between marriage and MGTOW, I wasn't here for the beginning of the conversation, so I don't know exactly what you guys said. But the thing with MGTOW is I don't think there is a danger, I think, of it becoming like a hikikomori or something in Japan, where you have like half of the society that isn't interested in sex. I think there is a genuine danger of it becoming rampant. In society, a lot of modern societies are anti-natalist, and they seem to have this nihilism and self-hatred and this destructive, almost this fascination with like suicide almost. I don't really know what's going to happen. Joe or Makita or whatever, he asked if who can say what's good. Other thing is, when I look at fertility rates and the grim, future coming up, it's not about really what's good as in morally, because I do believe there has to be a universal a truth, but it's just about what's what can even keep a civilization going. I mean, you can't run a civilization on importing Africans.
Religion is the only thing that keeps society going.
Or conservatism, at the very least, you have to conserve. You can't
you have to have a theology behind it. There's no way that you can just do it, because ideologies, everything can always be appended, and religions remain pretty solid. I mean, they're the bearers of culture.
You have to have a transcendental objective and reason for society.
So if you have a universal good, if you have a universal yes, this is good. I mean, you have to have God. There's no.
I'm not religious, and I'm not don't believe in God or spiritual or anything. I just don't believe at all. The thing is, I understand that these things are incredibly valuable, and that without them, you grow up in a void. It's like this libertarian idea of tearing down institutions, and you'll just get some perfect, men will just operate perfectly. But instead, you get anarchy. You can't.
So why do you need a religion? Why do you need a religion? Why?
I think it's just like culture. It's a framework that you need to grow up in.
It's simply another word for culture, in my opinion.
You don't need it permanently, but you need it at the beginning, because alien nonsense will creep in if you don't have it to prop you up.
What do you mean alien nonsense? What do you mean alien nonsense?
Stuff like Islam, the cultural Marxism shit. I mean, if you don't have something that protects you from it, you'll get all sorts of crazy ideas.
But I thought you just said we need religion. You just said that we need religion as a framework.
We need good religion. Islam is a conquering religion.
Good religion?
Based on.
So how do you know? How do you know what's a good religion? They're all religions. It's
you judge a tree by its fruit, Machida. Come on now, man.
Islam works for Arabs in the desert, where they have to raid other people.
It doesn't even work for them. It's an ideology.
It doesn't. But whenever Muslims can't raid and attack other people, they have to look at their dysfunctional societies.
I will be guys. I will host another hangout about Islam later. There's 5 minutes left in this chat, and you're bringing up Islam. I guarantee you're not going to be able to resolve it here.
I'm sorry. That was a firework. Anyway, who else wants to say something
about what we think marriage is and our responsibility to it, and then we'll wind this down. Okay.
You want babies, right? Babies are good, right? Babies are good, right?
Machida, how about this? How about you take 2 minutes to say your piece, and then we'll go around, and then everyone can sign off after they give their little statements. Fine. So start with you, and then everyone else can go off, and then I'll sign off everybody. Okay?
Okay. I'll be as brief. I'll be as brief as I can.
Okay, great.
Okay.
2 minutes or so.
So listen. I'm not trying to be just prescriptive and descriptive. At the end of the day, I have my own personal preferences. Okay, but the bottom line is, human beings were animals. Okay, we've created civilization, and it had to be built on certain institutions, and technology has changed everything. You can't. It doesn't matter if you can't bring religion into this. It is nothing. Religion has nothing to do with this. If you want to impose your values on people, your preferences. I mean, you have to prove that somehow your values are radically different than the values of other people. You brought up Islam. You want children. Islam makes children. I mean, I don't know. You guys seem to go all over the place. I mean, the bottom line is traditionalism is dead. It's done. There's no going back, short of a nuclear war.
Hold on. I don't want to start an argument, but
I do want to say. I think he's finishing up. That's.
I mean, in some, I'm not sure what else. And 1 minute left. I mean, I could argue with you guys about minutia all day, but no one knows what the future is going to look like. Nobody knows, and it's been that way throughout history. People People didn't know 300 years ago that the Industrial Revolution was on its way. There's no way to know. But the bottom line is traditionalism is dead. It's economically not viable. It's not viable to have a man provide for a woman while she farts out 5 or 6 kids. That's not economically viable in a post-industrial society. It's not my opinion. It's not about what I want or don't want. I don't care. It's not going to happen. It's you can believe in religion. You want to believe in Jesus. That's fine. I mean, you're not. It's not going to change. It's not going to change the reality of the relations between men and women. It's not. It's not. You're not going. We're animals, and we've always been animals. And religion is not going to change anything.
Okay, so you said your piece. Now let's go to let's say Captain, or would you like to go next? Respond,
sure.
or just
Yeah,
say
sure.
whatever you'd like to before we sign off.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. So we have the Machida had mentioned, prove your values. Well, what about the 2,000 years since Christ till now, where religion, the Christian religion, has created the Western society that we all now are arguing about keeping on how we keep it, and then further, they say we don't know. He says we don't know the future, and that we can't know the future, and that's completely true. But that's the argument for traditionalism, that you keep a hold of certain core principles because you don't know what the future is going to be. You want to make sure that you, your family, and your society at least remain. So we do that through religion. We don't do that through ideology. Ideology leads to Nazism, feminism, communism. Ideology doesn't lead to Christianity.
Yes. So I think that really encapsulates the counterpoint. Jolly, do you want to take a whack at any further statements before we sign off in a few?
No, I'll just keep it pretty quick because I already said my thing actually. But
okay, cool.
The thing with the Islam and the good and bad religions or good and bad cultures or something like that, we have to look at what they are about. Islam is a conquering religion, and it's anti-civilizational. It's not inwardly focused. It doesn't reflect. It's never going to have a reformation. It's not going to help anyone anywhere, and it's an ethnic mafia, to be honest. I don't know, what the future is going to be like, or really even. I don't think marriage is going to work exactly, but I do think conservatism is the only system that does work, because at a certain point you have to conserve society. Even if you want to change it, as soon as you get to the place you want to be, you have to conserve it. Mm-hmm. So it seems like this immutable law. You're going to have to become a conservative at a certain point. I don't know.
G.K. Chesterton said that the only revolutions that ever succeed have to be conservative, and that radicals have to be radically conservative if they ever want radical change.
That's exactly it. And just the last thing I'd say is pretty much all the women I've ever met are horrible. They've been terrible. They don't want kids or they just want a maximum of 2. I guess like they're, I don't know, accessories. They don't want big families. I don't know what it is, but I'm having a bunch of problems meeting any decent women. So that's why I sympathize with MGTOW.
Well, I know a great deal of amazing women who love children, so it could be experiential. Does anyone else want to take a last?
Go to church. Start going to church there, Crocodile, and you'll start meeting those women.
Oh, I got those weird, happy, clappy liberal churches around. They're not.
What up, cherries?
Find a good Catholic or Baptist church, maybe.
All right. Does anyone else?
Yeah, Robert Paulson, do you have any final words before we close? I have to leave in like a minute.
Not really. Thank you for your time.
Thank you guys. It's been great. It's been super interesting.
We should do this again.
Yeah, okay, so what I'm going to do, guys, right now is I'm going to publish this hangout as it is, called the MGTOW Hangout. Then I'm going to take the part that I talked to Turd Flinging Monkey in particular, and that will be the conversation with Turd Flinging Monkey. So there'll be 2 videos, and they'll just be extensions of each other. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk later about Islam and R versus K and high trust versus low trust. But I appreciate that we stuck mainly to marriage and MGTOW in this particular topic. So I'll see you guys later.
You should talk about Christian dating, too.
Christian dating?
Yeah.
That's a little personal, dude.
Or how about starting and finding families?
You should teach these girls how to find good women. You should. That's practical advice. I'm not even being facetious. You really should.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually.
Really,
After I land one, I will definitely give advice. Married Christians absolutely love lecturing people about how to set people up. So, but I assure you that good women exist. I know tons of them. They're amazing. Thank you guys for showing up, and I'll sign off now because I have to go. But thanks a lot.
Merry Christmas, man.
Merry Christmas. I'll see you guys. Holidays. If you guys want to hang out at the Advent Hangout, by the way, just send me a message on Skype or whatever, and I'll include you. Okay?
Oh, what time?
Oh, it's like 5 o'clock Thursday after I'm done with my work. Before I fly to the east. So, yeah, I'll see you guys later. Okay.
Merry Christmas, y'all. Take care.
See ya.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas.